Welcome to Golf Smarter Mulligans, your second chance to gain insight and advice from the best instructors featured on the Golf Smarter podcast. Great golf instruction never gets old. Our interview library features hundreds of hours of game improvement conversations like this that are no longer available in any podcast app.
So I had this crazy idea to travel around the world, from the southernmost to the northernmost golf courses. And I'm thinking, how would I fund this? And I only had one asset, which is I had a condominium on Lake Washington in Seattle. And so literally within 30 days of having this idea, I sold my condo. I put all my furniture that I wanted to keep in storage. I got vaccinated against every disease known to man. And I put 10 golf clubs in a golf bag with 3 shirts, 2 pair of pants, 3 pair of travel underwear, 1 black sweater for dressy occasions, and I took off.
With another interview from the archives of Golf Smarter, here's your host, Fred Green.
Welcome to the Golf Smarter podcast, David.
Hello, Fred.
How are you?
All is well here in New York City.
New York City, just like I pictured it. And you just recently moved there?
Yes, I've long wanted to live in New York City. Most of my adult life I lived in L.A. when I was a comedian and a comedy writer, and then I moved to Seattle for about 15 years. And it just kind of came up that opportunity to live here happened, and I jumped at it and got a place on the Upper East Side. And my agent is here, my literary agent, and my publisher, St. Martin's Press. So it seemed like a natural move, and here I am.
And now you're a stand-up comic and a writer, or what is your main focus these days?
Mostly it's writing and speaking. I was a stand-up comedian for about 20 years, and I kind of got tired of it and moved to Seattle.
That's got to be a tough life.
It was fun. I was lucky in that I did a bunch of David Letterman shows.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
In the mid-'80s, and Diana Ross saw me on the Letterman show. So, I started making a really good living. I didn't become a star, but I made a good living for my 20 years in stand-up.
Wow.
And I got tired of it, and I always loved Seattle. So I moved to Seattle, and I started a video production company making funny corporate training films that starred Harry Anderson, who was a friend of mine. He was the judge on Night Court.
And a magician. He's more known as a sleight of hand comic, right?
Yeah, and he's fantastic. He does comedy magic, and we had performed a lot together, and I asked him if he wanted to star in these films, and he did it as a favor to me. And I did that for about 10 years, and then, I'm not much of a businessman. I'm more creative. And I'm a golfer. And one day I was sitting at home looking for something new to do. I'd sold that business, and I thought, where's the southernmost golf course in the world? And I had no idea. I did a search on the computer. It turns out it's Ushuaia, Argentina, the very southern tip of South America. And I thought, where's the northernmost? Again, no idea. Did a search.
What made you think
Norway.
What made you think, what's the southern? I mean, how did that come up?
Well, I've been going to St. Andrews, Scotland every year traveling, and I've always said in lieu of having a well-funded retirement plan, I've played the old course 40 times. I'll be eating I'll be eating cat food in my 70s,
but you can die happy, right?
Right, I'll have those memories, and I love links golf, and I love golf in exotic places.
Oh, neat.
And it just popped into my head. I really have no clue where the idea came from. And so I found out the southernmost and the northernmost, and then I thought, that'd be kind of a cool trip. What if some idiot was to travel from the southernmost to the northernmost golf courses?
Did you know any idiots like that?
I did. I knew one very well myself. And I'm one of these people that once I have an idea like this, I have to do it. It doesn't make for sound financial planning, but it's the way I roll.
I got to imagine that many comedians all suffer from this impulsivity that they can't control because they're not medicated they're not medicated for that.
That's right. I dropped out of law school to become a comedian. So
gosh. Parents must have loved that.
Oh, yes. My mother was very, very proud.
Oh, yeah. She was telling everyone, yeah, my son, who's going to become a lawyer, went to go to be a comedian.
Yeah, they didn't. She was.
David,
I actually was successful.
David.
I know. I got successful quick enough that she wasn't worried too long, but she was a little concerned about her oldest child.
Yeah.
And anyway, I had.
Oh wow, you're the oldest. How many siblings do you have?
I have a younger brother and younger sister.
Oh my gosh, that's something that sounds like the youngest child would do, not the oldest one.
Well, my family, I was raised by my mother grew up in San Francisco, and I was raised by a single parent, and she was kind of a unique, how everybody says their mom is unique? Well, mine was. And we grew up very liberal and very, we moved a lot because we were always one step ahead of bill collectors. But it kind of made us all unique individuals, and we all have, the three kids have taken, kind of unique career paths, and so my upbringing, I look at it as a huge asset, and it made me not want to do anything normal. And so it was really a blessing in disguise how much we struggled. But my mom always knew food, and she was a reader, and so we grew up, for having no money, we grew up knowing about lots of things. And it was a really cool thing. And she passed away in 83, but she was just really a unique individual.
Oh, that's nice.
So anyway, it really made for, and that's kind of what I've always done. And then, so I have this crazy idea to travel around the world, from the southernmost to the northernmost golf courses. And I'm thinking, how would I fund this? And I only had one asset, which is I had a condominium on Lake Washington in Seattle. And so literally within 30 days of having this idea, I sold my condo. I put all my furniture that I wanted to keep in storage. I got vaccinated against every disease known to man. And I put 10 golf clubs in a golf bag with 3 shirts, 2 pair of pants, 3 pair of travel underwear, 1 black sweater for dressy occasions, and I took off.
I can't. I excuse me for making any assumptions, but I can't imagine that you were sharing this condo with any partner. I mean, were you by yourself?
No, I'm a single guy. I have long been a single guy, and so, I didn't have any. I wasn't like abandoning kids or a wife or anything, so there wasn't any of that.
No, nobody with a wife would have gone. Sure, go ahead, have fun.
Right. And it's funny. My friends held the first annual David Wood Memorial Golf Tournament, and I'm very proud to say there was not a second one. So I lived. So that's the ending of the book. I don't want to give it away, but I do live.
Oh, good.
So,
thank you. Well, you're living to tell about it right now.
Absolutely.
So what happened? Where'd you go?
Well, I decided I left in the end of August, and I wanted to get to the bottom of South America when it was just the start of spring in the southern hemisphere. And then and that was my only plan, was I wanted it to be summertime about a year later when I ended up at the top of Norway, about 15 degrees above the Arctic Circle. And so that was basically my only plan. I really decided to wing it, and I wanted to travel and see the world. And I'm a travel writer, reader, and Paul Theroux is my absolute hero. And I always wanted to take trips like Paul Theroux, but I kind of wanted to play golf once in a while. And that's what I did. So I made my way down to, by every conveyance possible, down to the southern tip of South America, which is not that easy to get to. I mean, I took 3 plane rides. I took 2 overnight buses. I took a ship from Port Lamont to Punta Arenas, which has the largest hole in the ozone hovering over this place in the archipelagos of southern Chile.
It must be easy to putt into.
No. I had so much sunscreen on. I looked like Edgar Winter when I was out there. But,
and for anybody who didn't live in the 70s, Edgar Winter was a rock and roller, an albino rock and roller.
That's right. Who's on a TV commercial. I just saw him in a TV commercial.
Oh, you're
the other
kidding.
day. No, it's funny to see him. Then from there... There you go.
Frankenstein.
Very good.
I was a disc jockey those days. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Very good. No worries. And so then I took a 15-hour bus ride down through Tierra del Fuego to Ushuaia, Argentina, the very southern tip of South America, and the world's southernmost golf course, and it was snowing. And wow. I kind of had to wait a few days for the snow to thaw. And then I went out to the golf course. It wasn't even open, so I climbed over the fence, and there was there was a golf lover who is from Buenos Aires who had resettled down in Ushuaia, which is a very beautiful town, by the way. It's in the Fujian Andes are down there. It's very beautiful, and it's the Beagle Channel where Charles Darwin went through there on his some of his trips. And he wanted to play golf. He had kind of been jonesing to play golf, I could tell, after a tough winter. And so we both climbed over the fence, and he didn't speak English, and my Spanish is terrible, but we had an absolute blast playing golf. And there was still some snow on the ground here and there, but it was really fun. It was a perfect way to start this adventure.
Yeah, and how was the golf course? I mean, other than the snow. I mean, I've lost balls in water. I've lost balls in tall grass, but losing a ball in the snow would be difficult because you're just not going to find it. Right.
Right. What's real funny is I'm a real purist in golf. I like, blade clubs, and I like, Titleist golf balls. And he pulled out an orange ball, this orange ball in the first day. I've never been so jealous of an orange golf ball.
Yeah, good idea. Oh, that's really smart. So how was the course?
The course was only okay. It's more of the setting. I did play a lot of big name courses on the trip, but I wanted to play places like this. I wanted to play public courses where idiots like me would play.
I have had the opportunity to do a couple of adventures with some of the listeners of Golf Smarter. And a couple of years ago, we went to Prague. This year, we went to Scottsdale. And I've always believed that golfers love to brag about where they've been and where they've played. They love to sit around and say, hey, have you ever played here? And I'm just hoping that we can go through your book and I can say, I've played there. But I have a feeling it's going to be, if I get to do any of that. But yeah, I just think that it doesn't matter how good the course was. I played there, right?
That's right. Golf is golf. I've been lucky, and I've played a large number of the best golf courses on earth. I've been very fortunate. But I tell you what, I love municipal golf. I love the fact that strangers can meet on the first tee of a muni golf course, be put together, and you become friends. I can't tell you how many of my friends, almost all my friends, are people who I met on the first tee of a golf course.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about municipal golf and public golf. You go to country clubs, again, and I get to play at lots of country clubs because I speak and I was a comedian, and I'd always get invited to play nice places.
Sweet.
And I'm always so amazed at how uptight they are, and they don't seem like there's an atmosphere of fun. And this always perplexed me. But give me a great muni. And by the way, it's like the old course of St. Andrews is a muni. It's the ultimate muni golf course. It's built for the people of the town. And that, to me, is what makes golf great. So
I couldn't agree with you more. I could not. I love walking onto a golf course by myself and just meeting people and playing with people. Country club golf to me, you shouldn't be allowed to have a handicap because you're just playing the same course over and over again.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's like, I'm a 9. Yeah, well, if you went over to my course with bad greens and you've never played before, I bet you couldn't break 100.
That's right.
That's
right. Yeah. I just don't like the attitude. I just cannot figure out why if you let's just say you're a rich person and you decide to join this place, why wouldn't you just make the rules fun? You can still have rules that you want people to maybe not wear, play barefoot, or shirtless. I mean, you can have rules. I understand that. But why wouldn't you make it a fun atmosphere? And I have never understood that.
I think that's part of the, oh boy, we're going to go into a deep rabbit hole here. I think that's part of the issue with why golf is not thriving at this point is because of their old school mentality, their old boy network type mentality that is not necessarily conducive to the future of the game.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, like you go to Scotland and Ireland. Now some of the Scottish clubs, I mean, they do have strange rules for women. Women can't be in this bar, for example. But for the most part, you go to these community golf courses in Scotland and Ireland, and they're just teaming with kids, they're teaming with women playing,
really?
With men, and that is just fantastic. They're almost community centers. Many times in Ireland, you go to a little town in Ireland, and the golf course has the best restaurant in town. I mean, and it's not a fancy restaurant, but it's known as the best restaurant, and that's kind of where people hang out. And I just think there should be more of that as opposed to, and by the way, I'm also a walker. I'm not a golf cart person, and I don't really care what other people do. I mean, especially if you have medical problems. But to me, it's a game that's to be walked. And I view golf like it's basketball. I'm playing a sport. I like to carry my bag. I like to sweat. I like to fret about it. I like to talk. I like to laugh. But to me, it's like playing basketball. It's not this it's become this thing, where people are having a picnic while they play, and they bring coolers, and to me, I want to play the sport, and so I've always treated it that way. And so I think it should be more like that, more inclusive, more welcoming, because it's just a game.
Well, for my 2 cent psychology on you, buddy, you're a masochist. That and the fact that you were a stand-up comedian, those are two. You subject yourself to some pretty painful.
Well, I've never taken the easy path.
No, obviously not. During this conversation, I'm going to probably throw you a couple softballs, but this is the fattest one I'm going to lay up right in front of you here. What's your favorite audiobook, David?
Well, I would have to say it's Around the World in 80 Rounds by David Wood. So.
Oh, my gosh. No, is that really true? You have your own audiobook?
I do have my own audiobook. I actually
did you read it?
I was the narrator.
Really?
I did it through Brilliance Audio in Michigan, and it was one of the coolest things I've ever done. It was very challenging.
Well, I prefer audiobooks, and I just finished 2, and I'll talk about those on later episodes. But I prefer audiobooks that are read by the author. There's so much more that comes into the story. And there are great actors who do audiobooks. There's no question about it. But they're acting. But when you have a biography or a story that is written by the author, there's just something more to it that you get out of it. Tell me about that experience.
Well, it was my agent called me and said that Brilliance Audio, who's number one in this field, wanted me to do it. I said, well, that'd be great. And so you fly to Michigan, Grand Haven, Michigan, which is this beautiful town, and they put you in a booth and you have your manuscript in front of you. And when you have a manuscript that's in in typed pages, it's quite thick. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at this thing going, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to read this thing
out loud.
And then yes, exactly. And and there's two guys in a sound booth, and you got headphones on, and they just they point at you to go, and you're going, oh my word.
Really?
And then I'm kicking myself for all because I was in South America to start the trip, and I put in all these Spanish phrases to be cool, and I'm kicking myself for all these incredible Spanish phrases I put in, which I think I'm going to butcher. But once you get the hang of it, it took me a day to get the hang of it, and once you get going, it's one of the most challenging and fun things I've ever done. And by the way, we did this 8 hours a day for 5 days.
Oh my God! And your voice held up?
It did. I mean, I was tired at the end of it.
Sure.
But what they did, a smart thing, is I was not getting it at first, but they turned the volume up in my headphones way up. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden you started to perform it because you could hear yourself so much better.
Right.
And that was a great trick that the director did. And I absolutely loved it. And I have nothing but respect for people who do that. I mean, it's really an art. And it was one of the best things I've ever done.
Did you have to go through any rewrites in talking about where, in the book itself, and I'm holding a copy of the paperback, which is 282 pages, where you talk about my book, and all of a sudden you're reading, you go, wait a minute, I need to say my audiobook or this audiobook? Were there any changes you had to make, or you just read it straight as you wrote it?
We read it straight through.
So
there was no changes whatsoever.
And were there times where they, as you were reading it, they went, you know what, let's do take two on that because I didn't get what you were saying, or did they?
All the time. I mean, they have this brilliant thing called real-time editing, and so and I screwed up a lot, and I got to where, and they say that even the best people at this only can do about a page or two without making a mistake.
Sure.
And I got to where I could do about a page and a half. And what happens is they just have real-time editing. So they stop you right there. We'll pick it up right here. Bam. So basically it's that quick as you go.
Yeah.
And I screwed up. I screwed up all the time. But I did get way, way better. And by the final day, I mean, I was really proud of myself that I could go through huge passages. And I loved it.
So they would basically say, okay, back up a sentence and start again. And right where they got to the point before you made a mistake, they would just hit record and you'd keep going and you wouldn't even know, right?
That's right. It's really brilliant how the system works. And,
I actually, I was for about 3+ years, I was John Madden's recording engineer.
Oh, wow.
And he would come into the studio where I was working at a radio station, and he had these 2-3 minute pieces that he did for the RKO radio network. And so he and I got into this rhythm where that's what I would do with him. If he made a mistake, I'd say, just back it up a line, and boom, he read the line exactly the same way each time. And if he made a mistake, you could never tell. And we were doing that little punch in just like that, just punch it into record. He was awesome with that. So I know what you're talking about. And once you get the rhythm of it, and the engineer understands your pacing, it's a great way to go.
Yeah, and again, the director was just so brilliant in how he realized that I was not hearing myself, and I think they were looking. I think initially they thought, "Oh my word, this guy's not going to be able to get through this."
Wow.
But he again, having those headphones turned way up, and all of a sudden you can hear the inflections in your voice as you do it, and you start shading the words. And that just made it. It was really a lifesaver.
And so, how long did it take you to do the book?
It took a full week. It took five solid days of basically
8 hours a day.
I would say 8:30 to 5.
Wow.
And I'd go back to the hotel and just be spent. I didn't want to talk to anybody, but I wanted it to be good. I mean, this whole project is so, as you know from your stuff, it's so personal.
Yep.
It's like, it's so funny, I'll tell you a story. I mean, I hope I'm not, I didn't have an agent for this or anything. I didn't even have a book deal. I just decided to do it, and I figured maybe it'll work out afterwards. So I came back after traveling for a year, and I didn't have a place to live, and my brother lived on the Monterey Peninsula. So I had about half of my money left from the equity of my condo. And I basically just decided to write the book. I said, I'm just going to be true to this. And again, no deal, no nothing. And I sat there for a year and wrote the book every day, religiously, every day. I just sat. And meanwhile, my bank account is just free-falling. I thought I could, I'm a professional speaker and had been a comedian, so I thought I would speak while I was writing, but for some reason I just wanted to be true to the writing. And so when I had written the manuscript, I thought, this is pretty good. I should get an agent, which again, I hadn't even thought of this. And so I bought a book. This is how naive I am. I bought a book, this large book that has all the agencies and publishing houses in it. And I just went through it. And for some reason, they listed the hobbies of the people who own these agencies. And I just said, I'll look for one with golf. And so I was going through it, and there's one with golf. This lady named Jane Dystel, who by the way, was Barack Obama's literary agent. So, and I had the manuscript done. And again, it helped to be a little dumb and just
absolutely.
Not play by the rules. So I sent her an email. I said, hey, I'm a former comedian. I've been on the David Letterman show. I've written a book called Around the World in 80 Rounds.
Don't forget Diana Ross. Diana Ross.
I didn't put that in. So anyway.
You did earlier.
Yeah, well, I know, but she emails me right back and says, I'd like to see something. So I didn't even know. Okay. I sent her a 2-page treatment that I had written up. She goes, what else you got? I said, I'll send you 3 chapters. So I sent 3 chapters. And she calls me back and says, I want to represent it.
Oh, that's great.
And, it helped to be dumb.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely. So where'd you go? Okay, so now I want to go back to the book. Now where'd you go? I want to go because I want to start getting places.
I decided to travel west. I decided to follow the sun, in essence, and
Smart.
I kind of had a general plan. So I went from South America, then I went to New Zealand, where I tried to vary up the travel, and I wanted to travel overland as much as possible.
Okay.
And I just didn't want to fly around. I mean, I did fly over oceans, but I went from South America to New Zealand, where I rented a camper van and went from north to south, all the way from the northern tip at Kataya and 90 Mile Beach, all the way to Stewart Island, which is the little dot under the two islands. Went there and went to Australia, where I took the train across the outback from the Indian Pacific from one ocean to the other, which was one of the great things I've ever done. Then I went to Southeast Asia, took trains up the Malay Peninsula from Singapore up into Thailand. I went to Laos.
Oh, wait, where'd you play in Thailand?
I played at the first place I played, which was great, was Blue Canyon, which is in Phuket, which is...
I played there.
There we go. We go.
We actually, in the archives of Golf Smarter, I interviewed the general manager, the head pro of Blue Canyon Country Club. So, yes.
Wonderful.
Oh, goody. Okay, we're done.
So,
Keep going.
And you know what happened was that I decided to take all offers, which is not my way. And anytime anybody suggested something, I would go.
Sure.
I was in Perth at this place called Joondalup, which is a Robert Trent Jones course in near Perth. And I had lunch with the general manager, and he was kind of a traveler, and he said, "Where are you going next?" I said, "I think I'm going to go to Singapore." He goes, "Hey, I know somebody in Singapore. We have a sister club there. Let me call ahead." Did that, went to Singapore. The guy says, "Where are you going next?" I said, "I think I'm going to take a train up the Malay Peninsula into Thailand." He goes, "Well, I'll call ahead to Blue Canyon." The guy at Blue Canyon called ahead to Mission Hills in China, which is the world's largest golf resort. And I'm playing there, and I'm playing with a guy who's a golf course photographer, and he said, "Are you going to Spring City, which is in Kunming, China?" I said, "No, I can't go. I have to get to India before it's too hot." He said, No, you have to go to Spring City." He pulled out a telephone, and next thing I know, the next day I'm going to Spring City. So I just let it take me, and it was
That's awesome.
Far better than if I would have planned it.
Yeah. Amazing. Oh, that's phenomenal.
Yeah, I was lucky. And I was also lucky that bad things kept happening to me, which, nobody wants to read about, what a wonderful trip somebody's having. So, that's what postcards are for. I was lucky I went over the Andes at 16,000 feet on a one-lane dirt road on a bus, and I got severe altitude sickness.
Wow.
I got terribly sick in India. And I got so sick in India from a food poisoning that I went to Nepal, even though there were 2 civil wars. I just didn't care. I just wanted to get out of India. And, there's bombs going off every day in Kathmandu. I got arrested going into Ukraine, and where I was held overnight by armed guards because I didn't have a visa to go across Ukraine. So, again, I was fortunate in that periodically some tough things were happening to me, which, makes a travel account a lot more fun to read.
Yeah, but if you were my child, I'd be, get home right now.
Well, I know. And by the way, if you want to lose weight, go to India, eat anything, anywhere, and watch the pounds fly away. Really? It's like one big Jenny Craig Center. I swear to God.
Yeah, I've heard people who've gone to India and said that the beginning of the trip in India, like kids who went to some away for the semester and stuff, is how difficult it is to make the adjustment. But once you're there, it's an amazing place. But it's a
fantastic.
Very difficult place to adjust to.
Oh, nothing like it.
Wow. So over those 80 rounds, how'd you score quickly? Did you keep your handicap, or you not even pay attention to it?
I didn't pay attention at all.
Really?
I had some low rounds in the low 70s. I just wanted to play golf and to meet people and have fun. And I didn't play that well. I can be a fairly good golfer at times. I've been as low as 4 handicap.
Wow.
But I actually struggled for the most part because I wasn't practicing, and I was much more into the travel. And so sometimes the golf actually, I mean, what kind of an idiot takes, I'm pretty sure I'm the only guy taking golf clubs over the Andes. You know what I mean? So, I started to curse those golf clubs at times, but I did have some low rounds in there. I mean, I played Mena House, which is right next to the Great Pyramid of Giza. And again, nobody out there listening to you wants to hear about a guy playing well, but I birdied under the Great Pyramid of Giza, which is like 300 yards away. I birdied the first 6 holes in a row, and I'm thinking, great, the only place in the world I can play good is under a Great Pyramid. So it's going to make my options very limited.
Yeah.
So, but mostly I didn't play that well. I just wanted to be social and play and meet people, and I did have a number of good rounds. Don't get me wrong, but for the most part, I didn't play as well as I usually do.
Well, obviously you had some amazing adventures and some great stories, and it's all here in the book called Around the World in 80 Rounds, and it's David Wood. David, where can we, other than Audible, thank you very much for making that available, but where else can we find the book?
Well, probably the easiest way to buy it, the hardback, the paperback, the Kindle version, or the audio version, in addition to Audible, is Amazon.com.
Actually, if you're on Amazon and you buy the audio version, it goes right to Audible because Amazon owns Audible.
Oh, perfect.
So there you go. There you go. Great stories about David's adventures around the world in 80 rounds. Dave, thanks so much for coming to the Golf Smarter podcast. I enjoyed hearing it, and hopefully if you get to the Bay Area, we'll get to play together.
Hey, thanks, man. I really, really appreciate it.